Black Skin, White Mask, a book review. Frantz Fanon, Black Skin, White Mask, 1952. New York, Grove Press, a book review by Chris Kanye. From a political angle, Frantz Fanon's most important books are The Wretched of the Earth and the Dying. Colonialism. However, I decided to review this particular book, Black Skin, White Mask, primarily because I noticed that many Africans have a tendency to talk about inferiority feeling in other Africans. Generally, such Africans lob the term inferiority feeling at some Africans and do so as a put down. That would seem to suggest that they have healthy self-concept. However, when you come close to them, you find that they are the most inferior feeling Africans on planet Earth. What they do is see something in them, deny it, and then project it to other persons that in their opinion seem to have what they denied in themselves, inferiority feeling. These people deceive themselves and want to deceive other Africans. If you allow them to deceive you, they would take you to the cleaners. They have not dealt with their inferiority feeling at the objective level and are merely mouthing concepts they do not fully understand. What I decided to do is use Frantz Fanon as a point of departure to talk about inferiority and superiority feeling in Africans and African Americans. In effect, this is really not a typical book review that limits itself to a particular book, but a springboard from which I talk about a subject that I believe needs to be understood by Africans. Frantz Fanon, 1925-1961, obtained the medical doctorate degree and specialized in psychiatry, which he completed in 1951. He wrote Black Skin, White Mask originally as his doctoral thesis, but it was rejected, and he had to write a more acceptable thesis. In 1952, he published the book. He published The Wretched of the Earth in 1961. Dying Colonialism was published after his death in 1961. Fanon was what we would today call a radical student. Whereas he did not consider himself a communist, he associated with leftists and ultimately joined the Algerians fighting for their liberation from French rule. Upon completing his medical training, he sought and got a job in Algeria. There, he worked in a psychiatric hospital while participating in Algerians' efforts to liberate themselves from French rule. Apparently, the French authorities got wind of what he was up to and repatriated him back to France in 1957. He immediately left France and went to Tunisia to join up with Arab freedom fighters. Apparently, Tunisia sent him to Accra, Ghana, as its ambassador. He participated in the several conferences that President Kwame Nkrumah's burgeoning government had organized. He was later diagnosed with leukemia and sent to the United States for treatment. He died at age 36 at Maryland, USA. Now let us see what the book said. The book did not waste time but dived right into the matter. Fanon said that upon coming to Paris, France, that is white man's land, his fellow Martiniques who had lived in the colonies and essentially were told that white folks were like gods had one thing and one thing in mind, to find out if white men were really godlike. White women were placed on a pedestal, so black folks want to have sex with them. Fanon and his friends went to a brothel and had sex with white women. In effect, Africans want to have sex with white women. White women are supposed to represent the almighty white race, so having sex with them is finding out what this whole race thing is all about. Fanon found out that the white woman is exactly like the black woman he had sex with in Martinique. There's absolutely no difference between white women and black women, except cultural differences. So what was that all about? What? It was all about was that the white man had exalted his women and dangled them in front of black men and say, "Come get them if you can, not before I have first lynched you. They are pure, and your own black women are filthy." Black men think that they should have sex with white women, and they always do, and find them the same as their black women. Having found that the white woman is exactly like the black woman, the normal black man returns to his black women. Generally, normal black men, Africans included, return to black women. For one thing, they understand them culturally and do not want to deal with women from a different culture. Life is easier if you married somebody from your culture, and that is exactly what black men do. But there are few black men who want to transcend their culture. Fanon wanted to transcend his culture. Therefore, having experimented with white women, he moved on and eventually devoted himself to his work. In devoting himself to his life's work, which was fighting for the liberation of colonized people, especially Algerians, he found out that leftist French women were active in this war. He found himself around white women committed to the course he was committed to. He gravitated to one such woman. This time not because of sex, but because of common purpose. So he married a white woman. Not for sex this time, but for love. Why did he do that? You mean, why did he marry a white woman? Was he inferior? I do not know. There are many reasons why people do what they do. To attribute interracial marriage only to black men feeling inferior and seeking superiority by marrying a white woman is to be a lazy thinker. A lazy thinker does not understand that there are complex motivations actuating people's behaviors. Most Africans who talk about inferiority in other black people, saying that black men who marry white women have inferior complex, are lazy thinkers, have inferiority complex, are lazy thinkers. In fact, they are not even thinkers, they are dummies. Some of those blacks who have made the most seminal contributions to the liberation of the black race were married to white women. I can think of Frantz, Fanon, Richard Wright, etc. You are going to be around those with similar interests. Race has got nothing to do with anything. Black skin and white mask. What does this really mean? Fanon is telling us that some black people desire being white. He is saying that black people deny their real black selves and put on a mask that shows them to be white. Black folks act as if they are white folks. That is the gist of this book. Frantz Fanon's Black Skin, White Masks is not merely a book. It is a mirror. It reflects the disfigured psyche of the colonized black subject, trapped in a world that not only dehumanizes, but also demands self-denial. While his later works, The Wretched of the Earth and A Dying Colonialism, may be more politically charged, this psychological classic holds the key to understanding the wounded spirit of post-colonial black identity. I chose to reflect on this book because I often encounter a specific pattern among Africans. Those who shout the loudest about black pride are frequently the ones most burdened by hidden inferiority. They project their insecurities onto others, accusing fellow Africans of being whitewashed, while they themselves harbor deep longing for white validation through education, medical care, wealth, even romantic partners. Fanon cuts through this illusion with surgical precision. Born in colonial Martinique, educated in France, and trained as a psychiatrist, he experienced firsthand the schism between black skin and the white cultural ideal. His central metaphor, the white mask, signifies the performance of whiteness, adopted by black people striving for social acceptance and personal worth in a world that devalues their authentic selves. To understand Fanon's intellectual roots, one must look to Alfred Adler. Fanon's work is drenched in Adlerian psychology, especially the concept of inferiority complex. Adler argued that all humans, to varying degrees, feel inferior and strive for superiority to compensate. Fanon applied this framework to the colonial subject. The black man, told by the colonizer that he is inferior, begins to believe it. He compensates by adopting the language, dress, education, religion, and even sexual partners of the white world. This adoption of the mask is not unique to Fanon's analysis. The very word personality comes from persona, a theatrical mask. As Carl Jung emphasized, our personalities are not our true selves, but socially constructed performances. Fanon's insight lies in exposing how colonial trauma distorts his performance, making it not merely a social act, but a spiritual betrayal. The book is most powerful when Fanon recounts his own experience, the moment in Paris when a white child pointed at him and cried, "Look, a Negro!" The moment sliced into his psyche like a scalpel. He was no longer a doctor, a scholar, a man. He was reduced to his skin. His humanity was negated by the white gaze. It is this encounter with the white gaze that recurs throughout the book, fracturing the black self and producing a double consciousness akin to W.E.B. Du Bois' theory, the internal conflict of seeing oneself through the eyes of the oppressor. Yet Fanon doesn't limit his critique to white society. He turns the lens inward. He accuses black people of internalizing the very racism that subjugates them. From black women who desire white lovers to men who fry their hair to imitate white aesthetics, he sees a tragic pattern of self-denial. These behaviors, while understandable in a racist world, are also acts of psychological surrender. But Fanon was no cynic. He believed that liberation was possible, not just political freedom, but psychological emancipation. To him, true freedom required shedding the mask and confronting the historical lies that shaped the black identity. This requires pain, confrontation, and a new cultural imagination. Fanon's point is that black people are always trying to be white-like. He wants them to stop doing so. Look, you all, Fanon say this: stop trying to be like white folks. Accept Frantz yourself as you are. Black skin is okay. Why is Frantz Fanon says this? What is to be black and what is to be white? Was Fanon stupid to talk this way? All human beings belong to the same animal species. A species are animals that can reproduce with each other. Europeans can reproduce with Africans and Asians, but cannot reproduce with gorillas. For though gorillas look like human beings, they belong to a different species. From where I'm standing, there's no such thing as race. So I find myself puzzled by what Fanon is saying, that there are certain black people who want to be white. What is that? What does Fanon mean? Biologically speaking, the term race is amorphous and is probably better not employed. However, socially and culturally speaking, clearly there are differences in people. Frantz Fanon died at the age of 36. That means that he did not live long enough to truly have deep understanding of human nature. His thoughts were the thoughts of a young man, shallow but interesting. He was a bright black man who studied Adlerian psychology and used it to try to understand his people. But his understanding of psychology was superficial, and therefore what he said in Black Skin, White Mask showed schoolboy level of understanding of the human phenomenon. Whether we like it or not, a universal human is emerging, quietly, steadily, and irreversibly, fueled by globalization, migration, shared spaces, and the collapse of rigid boundaries. Humanity is blending, physically, socially, and culturally. If you use the computer to simulate what the average person might look like in the future by layering all the skin tones of Earth's people, you get a soft brown. Not black, not white, not pale or olive, brown. That future hue already lives in people like Tyler, the South African global star whose bloodline spans Indian, Zulu, Mauritian, and European ancestry. She's not a rare exception. She's a preview. This evolution doesn't come from formal unions or grand declarations of unity. People don't intermarry as some idealistic gesture. They simply connect. They move, they live, they love, they exist in proximity. And children are born. From Johannesburg to Jakarta, Sao Paulo to Stockholm, new generations are being shaped by the fusion of global DNA. This new human is more than a shift in skin tone. It's a shift in consciousness. The child of multiple lineages isn't easily pulled into divisive ideologies. They carry multiple worlds inside them. They don't represent diversity, they are diversity. They're less likely to see themselves through a single racial lens and more likely to identify as global, flexible, and complex. Of course, this doesn't mean racism, prejudice, or exclusion are vanishing overnight, but the tide is turning. Even as some try to cling to old constructs, the future is forming in classrooms, in shared apartments, at music festivals, and on TikTok, one child at a time. The world isn't becoming a melting pot in the sense of sameness. It's becoming a mosaic. And that mosaic is trending toward one thing: the emergence of a universal human being. One who looks like all of us and none of us. One who might call 5 places home, speak 3 languages, and feel loyalty not to a single tribe, but to Earth. It's not utopia, it's biology, geography, and reality. The future isn't just brown, it's beautifully blended, and it's already here. Fanon was stuck in the past. Black skin, white masks is obsessed with binaries. Black versus white, colonized versus colonizer, African versus European, that's it. His world was a psychological battlefield between trauma and mimicry, where the black man is always wounded, always trying to be someone else, always split down the middle, but that world is gone. We're not in 1952 anymore. Fanon couldn't imagine a future where people like Tyler exist naturally, blended, global, and unapologetically everything. He was too focused on purity, on peeling off the white mask to rediscover some buried, true black self. But here's the problem. There's no such thing as a pure self anymore, and maybe there never was. Today's youth are born from fusion, not division. They don't need Fanon's psychoanalysis to understand themselves. They just live. They aren't trying to be white or trying to reclaim African authenticity. They're not wearing masks. They are the future, and that future doesn't fit into Fanon's old frame. His ideas were rooted in Freud and Adler, two old white men talking about repression and inferiority complexes. Fanon swallowed that stuff and turned it into a black man's gospel, but it's outdated. He was too busy diagnosing colonial wounds to realize that people were already healing in their own way by mixing, moving, making babies, and living on their own terms. Black Skin, White Masks is a smart book, but it's shallow. It doesn't go deep enough because it assumes the problem is always whiteness. It doesn't have space for people who don't see themselves as either or. It doesn't know what to do with someone who calls Five Places home, listens to Afro beats and K-pop, and doesn't give a damn about being authentically black. Fanon meant well, but he was limited by time, by ideology, and by his obsession with identity as a site of pain. The future isn't painful. It's complex, it's mixed. It's beautiful Fanon couldn't see that coming.